to Dr. Margaret and Dr. Katie Speaks on Soma Fusion Media this evening. And tonight we're going to be talking about beautiful artistic you. And before we start with our topic tonight, I am just going to mention out there for all of those people, thank you for recognizing me and for everything that I do. I will mention too that as of Monday, I will be interviewed and featured upon the recognition of everything that I do as an umbrella local hero. So that article will come out on Monday or sometime during the week, and I will post it up on the internet so that you can see it up on social media. But until then, we'll get back to, I just wanted to mention that really, really quickly because, you know, I thought it was important that I do thank the people that do listen and do follow me worldwide. So a little gratitude of thanks there, but now we're going to go back into the topic. Beautiful artistic you. What does that mean? What does that mean is, let me go back to here. I'm working with it, winging. Deep within the DNA are all the talents and skills of your ancestors. Today, there are so many people interacting. Many of us see various gifted artists sharing their work. I and Margaret being one of them. And whether you like music, whether you like arts and crafts, and various other creative talents, you have the artist within you just waiting to flourish. Dr. Margaret and I will be speaking tonight about how we can share your skills and how to channel your divine creative self to express your feelings and ideas in both usual and unusual ways. So with that said, I'm going to hand it over to Margaret this evening, and she's going to let us know about what this really means to all of us.
Actually, as you know, spirit guides are always around me, and they actually are the ones that told me that this was absolutely a good time to do this because all the planets are all squares, and you know, we're all going through lots of chaos and ups and downs and ins and outs, rushing around. And we get so busy with just the way life is that we don't stop to think, what about my, you know, inner beauty and the way I express myself, because I'm too busy thinking I have to worry about this person and that person and have to be on time and so on. It gets worse and worse. So when I was waiting, you know, for us to get together, they took me back 100 years. And I said, well, why do you want to go to 100 years? Because we're talking about now. And they said, I think it's important that people understand that we've been on a roller coaster ride over the last 100 years. And if you go back there, you know, to that 100 years, there was no communications other than Morse code. What my father used to say to me all the time. And you know, telephones that, you know, were run on wires. So a lot of times you couldn't even get into a phone booth because it was a line waiting for everybody to get a phone call going. And then is everybody tapping on the phone box. And I remember this in the 40s, you know, being a youngster. Hurry up, I've got an emergency call to make. I'm sure they didn't. It's just they're impatient, you know. But let's go behind all that impatience and say, when we stop and we think about everything that we've done through this century, you know, the 1900s to the 20s, we've just got so technical that we don't even understand that time passes in the blink of an eye. When, you know, back in those early 1900s with no telephones other than an old-fashioned thing, people had to rely on letters. Okay, and letters, basically, you would sit there and it was like, you have to write it perfectly, you have to do it in a certain way, you have to make everything really clear and tell all the stories so that they know what's happening to you in your household or wherever you are. And especially if we were all living in different countries, then there's the shipping, it's got to go in a mail bag, it's got to get somewhere. And now here we are today, blink, 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 you've got all your things on your phone, and that phone doesn't stop.
Nope.
You know, spam is terrible. And those people who do that, I don't know how they can even have a consciousness in their mind that that is a good job to do. They must be very desperate, I think, to want to do that, knowing you're going to annoy thousands of people in one day. But that's not about them. But what it is about them is, if they're on that phone so long, every day of their life, they have no time to think beyond that job, running home, maybe having a go-fast dinner, getting in bed, hoping they've done some good work, got some commission, and then in the morning start over again, day in, day out. They must be very angry people, very frustrated people, very lost people. And I think they don't have any idea that they've got some creative inspiration that would give them something to do that's beside that job.
I'm offended.
Oh, why are you offended?
Because that's my job.
Yeah, no, but you're not spamming and telling people that you've won $1,000. Just click on this link and you go there, and then call us in, and then we'll pitch you, and then you find out they're trying to con you. And I did get conned, remember? So I learned the hard way. Don't listen. And even after I got over that con and got around it and got my money back too, the thing was, I got another call 2 weeks later, and they were trying to do the same, and I'm telling them straight flat.
Okay, yeah. So for those who don't know about what actually went wrong, did that. What was the company that did that?
Publishers Clearinghouse wasn't the company. No, it wasn't the company. It was some spammer that was telling me they were the company.
Yes, but you know that Publishers Clearinghouse, and for those people who are listening out here, Publishers Clearinghouse are the worst of the spammers. It is literally like the old chain mail kind of
letters that you write this and send it to 10 people. Yeah.
Now that's the electronic form of spamming people and conning people into winning prizes that don't really actually exist.
And you could say, why I'm mentioning it is, that is creative. How they think up, how they're going to con you is actually a creative brain consciousness. And we don't think of it that way because we're so busy saying spam, spam, spam. But somewhere, someone had to sit down and design the pattern and all the things they say and do, and then design all the programs to send those spams out, and so on and so forth. So there is someone creative behind it. And they probably never get any praise for that credit because they're too busy thinking, I've got to make this work.
Well, that's very true too. But the other thing is too, is that we get sucked in by a good gimmick, and we're unknowingly, well, we are, but we aren't. Well, we're not consciously anyway, but we actually subconsciously give them all of the information that they need in order to spam us. So who's really being conned?
Well, that would be a question, of course, we're not doing a whole show about conning, but I just wanted to use that as a very big example right now, that there are a tremendous amount of people all over the world who are spammers, who are intellectually creative. Mm-hmm. And people don't think about being intellectually creative.
Well, the only reason why I'm bringing up that conning the subject is because by giving us the capacity to consciously or subconsciously sign up to these things thinking that they're a good deal makes us lackluster in creativity. That means we're just going with whatever's said. I'm just going to do it. We're not actually thinking about how we can create whatever that we want to see, to get in front, that or whatever's in front of us, because those prizes and whatever's out there, well, if we want $5,000, then why aren't we working towards being creative to get that $5,000?
Well, that's the point. So I was making the side of the intellectual creativeness. And I want to go over to, because, you know, everybody, I picked the topic and listening to spirit. And so I get all this information in my head, but there's a lot of different intellectual, creative people all over this world. There, for example, Tesla, he was a medium as well, but look what he came out with. The same as I've got my crystal therapies and nobody else has that because I'm the only one that got it. Now I'm teaching and training people, so that makes it available to other people who go on to teach it. So we're all birthing, and that's the point of creativity. We're all birthing a feeling from the beginning, a feeling. So years ago, when I was a baby, literally toddling around, I saw stones on the ground and I had a feeling I loved it and I wanted it and I picked it up. And of course, I made a lot of collections on stones and I put them in patterns on my table and play with them. And then when I got a little older, I was playing mummies and daddies and putting them on my friends. So that's how I learned that stones heal. But I wouldn't have ever discovered that if I hadn't first had that feeling. I want to collect the stones. And that's, you know, with this such a busy life right now, with all the people on their computers, on their phones, running up and down the freeways with their cars, or should say sitting there in traffic jams, you know, the bottom line is they don't have any time to play and discover a talent. So my crystal acupuncture came out of playing mothers and fathers, right? So what about you? Did you just recently discovered you were artistic, right?
I didn't recently discover, I came out with the discovery that I was artistic. I've actually been artistic for well over 2 decades. I just didn't, because I was in a place of vulnerability, I didn't come out with a lot of my artistic skills that I have. And I didn't let the world know that I had such an imagination. I didn't let people know that I was creative on, you know, through a very, very high degree. So I kept myself hidden. And by doing so, once I did launch the fact that, yes, I was extremely artistic, I've kind of, everyone was like, whoa, did you just learn that overnight? No, never.
Well, you told me, I'm interrupting you because you told me you'd never drawn before.
No, I've been drawing for the last 20 years.
Ah, so you're not as talented as I thought. No, I'm being mean. No, seriously though, we all, you know, let's go back to the childhood part of self. Were you scribbling and coloring and painting and doing all that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. See, every parent wants to entertain their children. And, you know, my generation being war baby, we had marbles. We used to play marbles and try and hit them across. And that to me, as I watched a marble spinning, because I had little glass colors inside, to me, that was like a stone. That was pretty. And I actually had some, and I had jacks. Do you know what jacks are? When you throw the thing up in the air and you catch it? Well, these are games where you basically thinking and feeling. And today, kids can't go on the street. They can't be with one another because of the virus. You know, they can't do whatever they want to do. They are missing a tremendous amount of opportunities for talents. So what are we going to do about it is the big question to all the people all over this world who are sitting, twiddling their thumbs, moaning and groaning because they've got no money and this and that. But hey, there's stones in your backyard you could pick up. You could make a pile of stones and make a rock garden. I mean, what is talent? Talent to me is something you desire, you want something, and therefore you dig inside yourself and you ask yourself, how can I get that? Or how can I do that? Okay. Have you ever done anything that you've never dreamed you would ever be able to do?
No, because the way that I view things is to try everything once. And if I haven't tried everything once, I've never done it. And so by by having that philosophy that I've lived with for most of my life, I've literally, I literally just delve myself into everything. It means that I haven't I can't do, you know, I have to do, and instead of I can't, and or I, you know, I can't learn this because of whatever excuse that I come up with. And so with that said, that's why, you know, it does come across a little bit that I can do a lot of things. The Jane of all trades, but master of none. But the thing is that with creativity, you have to want to do it rather than sit here and look at our phones every 2 minutes. We have to want to do something creative. We have to want to do something new. We have to have that curiosity in order to get to that level, because if we don't have that curiosity, then we're forever sitting there complaining, oh, I can't do this and I can't do that.
Well, I was going to come in here on the DNA bit for a minute. For example, I was watching X Factor a while back, and this young kid, 13, I think she was, came on, very sort of mousy and quiet and body language like this. And her parents were standing on the side. And, you know, they went through the judge thing, and she's like, well, I'm going to sing. And they said an open question, like, you're going to please the whole audience. And she was like, you know, I don't know, I please myself. And I thought, what a good answer, because the bottom line is your creativity has got to please you, not everybody else. Anyway, she opened up her mouth and sung emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. Her whole being was in there. Okay. And she had no training. The parents said there was nobody in their family who was currently active with singing or anything else on stage. And I was watching her, and Spirit Guide said to me, oh, but what they haven't known is that their great-grandmother actually used to sing in vaudeville. Because the family separated. Now, of course, I couldn't tell them because, you know, they're all done, and I was watching a post thing. But that's where the DNA comes in. And I'm very fortunate in that I had a lot of talent in my background. My own grandma, my mum's side, was vaudeville. And so she would sing on stage. And then on my father's side, they were all... like it was his great aunt who passed on was an actress, and one day she was about 19. She dressed up like a very old woman, and she hobbled around, and she got in line for the bus, and those buses in those days were open top and the stairs on the outside and all that kind of thing. So she hobbled on, and someone gave her up a seat, and she sat there and she put on a croaky voice and did the whole works. And then after she'd done it, she got off the bus and walked up the road back home and came into her parents looking like this. And they're like, my God, how did you do that? You shouldn't be out there. You know, like this. Because they're all posh, you know. And she said, well, I've just proved I'm an actress and I want to go to acting school. And they did let her go, but unfortunately she got pneumonia or something, and she passed over at a very young age. But that is in my gene, you see. So I could do that. I could actually get on that bus and pretend I'm an old person. I haven't, no, won't, but I have it within me, because the ancestry was always brought forward to me in that when I was a child, my mother would play the piano and sing, and my father would take me out and look at dowsing and, you know, and old things and say, you know, I got taken to like the Tower of London and look at all these gems in the Queen's crown. I was pretty young, you know, about 9, but and I looked at all of that and I thought, whoever made that, even at that age, I thought, whoever made that great big heavy crown, and it apparently weighs about 10 pounds, and the stones are like this inside, and Can you imagine? She was sitting there with this thing on her head and holding these things, can't move because you get, you drop it. Doesn't fit very well. But when they made that for a man, because a man has a bigger head, right? And so what I'm saying here is that the royal family or anyone anywhere in the world in the past had someone make something very special for them relative to what they were doing. So there was the crafts, there was the arts. Someone wanted a painting of themselves to hang on the family wall. So some artist had a job and they would come and paint, right? Today, it's all take a picture of me, put it in a program, boom, 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 make it look like a painting, hang it on the wall, and then everybody says, oh, did you paint that? And they lie and say, yes. No, seriously, there's so much that the computers have done, have taken away from us the creativity. So if you're technically minded, which I'm not, and you want to, paste something from some place to another and then, do all that, I'm lost. Whereas I grew up with, I'm going to make a full-size poster, Margaret speaking somewhere and do all fancy writing and draw it and color it in and paste it on the blackboard and, and that was fun, right? To make something, even though it was involved in my work. But today it's not fun. I don't have any fun preparing for anything because it's all technical and I've got no room for my creativity. But you, on the other hand, you're younger than me, half my age, and you are very creative. Tell them what you do with your little things or make your little flyers and things.
I'm technically, creatively, and academically intelligent, somewhere along the lines of that. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it because literally because of that can-do attitude that I am curious enough to try everything. I literally don't have any trouble in trying to process anything.
So when it comes to the computer, do you have all the designs in your head before you start?
Pretty much.
So you've already got your creative artist in you working?
Pretty much. I have said to people, because I have done graphic design before, and I have said to people, just tell me what you would like me, what you envision, and then leave the rest to me.
It's like when you did the cover of my book, you did a really good job.
Yeah, because I've had a lot of people go to me, oh, I want this, and they're very specific, but the problem is with being specific, by being specific, it's good in a way, but not so great that it doesn't allow the flexibility to be creative.
And that's an important part, for anybody, anywhere. So I'm going to bring that forward to when kids go to kindergarten, and I'm talking about my kids, they would get plasticine and, crayons or whatever, but they would always come out with something creative that they, when I picked them up, that they done. And recently I was talking to a young mother with her children, and I said, so do they do Play-Doh and all that stuff? And she said, oh, there is that, and they do it, but the emphasis is on read and write. And they're 2 or 3 years old. We didn't learn to read and write until I could do numbers and things, I was about 3.5. These are 2-year-olds that are learning, and they can, and they do, because they're born with the Aquarian age consciousness, and they're ready for the technical age to go into sound. So I understand that, but I also think it's very, very important that parents do take time out to encourage creativity. Now, there is one creative aspect that I think everyone needs: exercise. And whether you're running, walking, jumping, running a race, whatever it is, that is in the category of creativity. How did you do on that?
Myself into sport. I don't know in shoot. I never really thought about it.
So you didn't do sports in school?
No, I did sports in school. In fact, I did a lot of sport in school. I did a lot
But you never thought it was creative?
No, I was just doing what I loved.
Ah, yeah, I understand that too. Yeah.
I just didn't see it as a way or means of creativity. I just saw it as something that I really, really enjoyed doing. And that was allowing me to be free in my comfort zone to do what I love. So, you know, I always seem, and I think I'm probably saying this for a lot of people, is that creativity is usually refined to being something where you would pick up a crayon, or you pick up a pencil, or you would do some writing, or you would design something or create something that comes out of imagination, or something along the lines of that. Not necessarily creating during a physical activity. You would create maybe by designing something, or creating something maybe in the kitchen or something like that, coming up with something new. But no, I can't see physical creativity for some reason.
Well, I actually used it a lot when I was playing, you know, tennis and netball and all the things that girls do over there in England. I'd be obviously learn the rules and regulations of the game and everything, but I would be thinking, watch their body language, watch my opponents, watch where they're going, notice whether they lean to the left or the right. And I guess that was the artist in me, because I would watch their expressions, I would see everything, and I know that they're thinking I'm going to say hit the ball to the right, and they're ready to go that way for their left, and I would deliberately hit it on the other side. And that's how I won a lot of games, because I paid attention to what they were showing me, and that is their body, that is their creativity, how they express themselves.
I see that as strategic. That's something that is very analytical, that is a requirement of the game itself. No, but I get where you're coming from, and I do see the analogy, you know, being brought to light, and it's completely different perspective. But like I said, you know, a lot of people are not going to see it that way. They're going to see it as something, this is what I need to do. I keep my eye on the ball, and it needs to go from A to B, and this is how I get a goal.
Yeah, and that's like with golf and all these other things I played. But the bottom line is, though, that when a coach is teaching you the rules and regulations and how to perform, and once you got it, then the passion, the desire for the game, the way you play it, the way you look at your opponent, how you interact with them, to me, was no different than when I was sitting in my art class painting with my friends all around me, and talking and looking at their work and comparing it with my work, because, you know, you'll do that thing when you're young. Because we were encouraged to. And that brings me to another point, that when you're creative, you're also going to be competing. You compete with yourself, and you compete with other people, which is why I brought up the sports. And it's only those that have a love for that sport that go on to make it a career, because to them, it's their art. It's their body form. It's the way they express themselves. And it's the way they want to reach the hearts of others, to understand that they're doing it for the onlookers. They're doing it for the watchers. So it's no different like when I was doing acting, singing and dancing. I loved it, to be at the rehearsals and all that hard, you know, stuff that you have to do. It was just worth it when that curtain came down, and they're clapping and clapping, and the curtain goes up and down, and they're clapping and clapping. And you know that every one of us who's been in that show is full of joy, because we've achieved the goal, which is to show ourselves that we can sing, dance, act, or whatever, and at the same time, please a body of people who are going to go home laughing and enjoying themselves. And of course, I'm going back a lot of years, you know, to the world the way it was without all these phones and things, you know. So I feel that my grandchildren have lost that magic. They've lost, they sit in front of the TV, they do their homework on the computer, they can't go outside because A, it's dark, and B, there's nasty men around or something, and so they're denied expression. And the creative side of us is our emotional expression of how we feel, how we think, and how we use our body. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to open that doorway to people today to think about, why do you say, and I'm reaching out to the people who think they don't have any creativity, why do you tell yourself you have no talent, no skill? Someone somewhere put that idea in your head.
Or no passion.
Yeah, it's true as well, because someone has said you're not good enough. Mm-hmm. Now, if you think about children in school, they're always in competition. They always are. I'm better than you. My dress is prettier than yours. I want a new frock from wherever, it's because I want to look the same as someone else. That's competition. But it's also, I want to feel good. I want to look good. And if a child isn't encouraged to have certain measures of creativity, certain measures of productivity, certain measures of performance, we can go on with a whole bunch of things, then they don't try today. Whereas when I was a kid, it was the way of life. You tried because everybody else was trying. Everybody was doing it. There was some pantomime going on, or some Easter parade, or there was always something going on, and the children were involved. I know I'm not saying there aren't parents doing this, of course there are, especially a lot of parents who are tied into religion, philosophy, and church. They actually do spend more time monitoring what their children are doing, which is an old adage from the times of the Piscean age that I grew up with, because the important factor was keep the kids occupied, right? And as long as you're doing something you enjoy doing, you're happy. So we didn't have all these spats that these kids have today, fighting one another and, running off with someone's something. And I'm going to bypass here a little story of my third son. I had a BMX bike that his father bought him in England, and he was waiting and waiting on it to be shipped over because he was good on it and could do all the swivels and things. And when it arrived, he wanted to take it to school and show his friends. And I said to him, I don't think that's wise. You're in America. He could have taken that to school in England and not even chained it up, and it would have been there. He took it to school. He came out. Someone cut his, cable, stole his bike. Now, that kind of thing is paramount now. People steal, take things all the time. I've been seeing it going on and on, getting worse and worse over time, because I really feel that the children today are not being taught how another person feels when somebody takes something from them. And so if they've got parents who just let them run wild because parents are working and they don't know what they're doing, I'm not saying they're really letting them run wild, but they're not being watched. They have to stand for themselves, and all we hear about is these spats in school where they're fighting, and then the teacher's sent for, and we have to, for the mom, and it's like, Mum, what, my child, he's a good behavior kid at home, but is he? So I'm not blaming parents. I'm not saying anything about that. I mean, we all have our hardships in our life. And I know that when I was on the road teaching my profession, I had to have someone living with my kids while I was gone. And I know that when I came back, many a time my kids would say, I didn't like that person looking after me. They were too strict, or they were too this. And I looked at them and I just said, then you had a good lesson. I think children need lessons on their, not only their talents and their skills, and we're going to kind of talents in a minute, but also you know, the expression of self. You know, I had a teenager a couple of years ago now with me, and I asked her, what does she like to do? And she went, and I said, what do you do when you're on your own? She said, read. So I said, well, that's good. What do you read? Novels. Okay, well, that's good. Do you read any textbooks? No, I hate them. But what about your schoolwork? I hate school. Okay, do you have any friends at school? I hate them all. I hate. Okay, now I'm not mentioning any names, obviously, but she was the child of one of my adult patients who was also saying, I hate my job, I hate this, I hate that, and so on. And, you know, people don't realize, and I have to admit that before I had my breakdown and died, I was nagging, you know, because when you're bringing up 4 unstable boys and drunk husband, you know, what are you going to do? You're going to scream and try and stop it, and you get torn out and worn out and whatever. So I was not a good model for my children in those days. And I'm telling you that even though they're adults and fathers themselves, they still pick on me. And, you know, and what they do is they pick on me, not because they want to pick on me, but because they dredge up history. And when you dredge up history, that is a load of negativity that will immediately block any emotional feeling of wanting to create something, because you're in the past. And, you know, if you want to do something like, let's say, make some pottery, you got to go and find someone who loves pottery, has got a wheel, and is going to teach you how to do that. Now, I admit I'm in a small town, but there's only one person that makes pots that I know of. And can she get students? No, they're all busy. It's not that they people say, oh, I love what you made. And, you know, she has a table at fairs and things. Oh, I love what you made. But they're not, people aren't giving themselves space, time out to do something.
Yeah, but at the same time too, when people do actually take the time and space to do whatever their art form may be, it's the other people on the receiving end that actually see what is being done, and they either appreciate it or they don't. And the majority of people out there who are just stuck into themselves, and I'm talking and very specific here about those who are literally into themselves and what they do, and hatred for everybody around them, and I'm just stuck in my life, and they're the ones that actually don't appreciate, they have no appreciate or love for what another person is capable of doing.
That's very true. And like I say, when you go to one of these church fairs or things, you see all these Christmas things people have made. In fact, right now in my town, there's a whole bunch of women who are seniors making Christmas stuff for sales to raise funds. And that's wonderful. They're retired and they've got time to do that. But I have taught to them in the past, not this year, but a few groups back in time. And I asked them, did you do any of this when you were, you know, mom and home? And they said, no, so-and-so taught me, this woman over there taught me, or something. So, you know, seniors are learning, and that's good to see, because they missed out in the younger years. Now, again, I'm not throwing me at the world, but I'm saying I had a really, really good teacher for the arts and crafts and all those things. She even had us printing on white linen material, making sort of patterns on lino, rolling ink on it and then stamping it onto the material, letting it dry and treat it and do whatever. And then I made myself, in my home class, a skirt out of it. So there was always some class was interactive with another class. Okay, well, I don't hear that now anymore. I hear from the teachers, well, I just teach geography. Do you really interact with the other? No, once I've done those classes that teach the same years and whatever, then I can't wait to get home because I've got to get home for my husband who's getting out and going something. So there's always something more important than the creative thing. I'm going to tell you, I just bought a bunch of puzzles, jigsaw puzzles. And I used to love doing those as a kid. And we got round the table together and we all did it together as a community thing. Okay. How many people, I wonder today, if ever anyone did any research, would find how many people actually, not because of COVID, because they're locked up now, and I know they've been selling a lot of puzzles around the world because we're stuck in home, but how many people would have it brought doing jigsaw puzzles as a creative thing into the family for everyone to share? Question mark. I wonder. You know, if there's anybody listening and you've done a puzzle recently, I'd like to hear about that. You know, it's all about how do we find the ambition within ourselves to give ourselves whatever talents that are in us. So I'm going back to people who say, I have no talents. I've had a lot of clients over the years say that. And I say to them something like, have you ever enrolled in a class? Oh, no, because I haven't got any talent. You know, I'd only fail before I even start. Right? And I can name one person, I won't name her, but use her as an example, where she was working in an office. She was in our lives because my husband's working in that office too. And she came and wanted a reading. And, you know, I basically said to her, you're supposed to go back to uni, study the arts. She took me literally. She went in and she enrolled not to be an actress, singer, or dancer or anything like that. She enrolled to be a dress setter. In her class, there were 6 of them. But guess what? She did the sets for Roseanne. She got all the big jobs. I'm just using Roseanne as one example, a show that was popular back then. And that was someone who said before, when I gave her the reading, I've got no creativity.
Well, see, here's the thing. I could go down a different path. For those people who are wildly successful, like we're talking business people, all sorts of people, whatever field.
Any field, yeah.
Those people who are wildly successful, they know how, they have actually become masters in embracing boredom.
What do you mean by having a boat and a car and a van and a this and that?
Well, do you know how to embrace boredom?
Do I know how to embrace boredom? I don't know boredom. I don't embrace it. So what's your answer?
Well, basically by having a fascination, basically we get better at embracing bored moments, because we can achieve more by embracing the boredom, and by embracing the boredom, meaning that we find that purpose. So by remembering the purpose that we have of why we are bored in the first place, or to bring those bored moments to light. And that also gets us to question why we are really doing them in the first place. Why do we like art? Why do we like physical activity? Why do we like painting, doodling, acting, singing? Why do we like the things that we like? Why do we like the job that we like? And
because it makes us feel good, period.
But at the same time, by embracing that boredom, that means that we're doing the boring things first and waiting for that by doing the boring things first, we can get to the more extravagant things that we actually love. And so by starting,
well, I didn't actually see anything. I can't even think of a time when I would say I'm bored. For example, I was in a school class once years ago as an adult, not a child, for something. And the person was talking in a monotone voice, which you could say was boring because I noticed people are fidgeting and touching stuff and looking around and doing this kind of thing. And they were just critiquing. We all went for coffee and they were talking. And they were using the word boring. And I didn't see it's boring because I was studying her. See, that's what I do. I studied psychology and psychiatry. So I'm looking at the demonstration that's going on in front of me and thinking, oh, I can describe that kind of thing in a book, or I can talk about that thing in a show. I can, so I'm always seeing something as additional information for my creativity to then figure out how I want to use it in some way.
Well, see, that's the whole point of why I brought up boredom in the first place, because it actually, it actually, what it does is it propels us towards deeper thinking and creativity. That, the theory has it that the bored mind searches for stimulation. And so by saying that, when I say stimulation, I'm talking about daydreaming, and which also leads us to new creative ideas. So that's why we need to actually embrace boredom, because we have the tendency of also putting off boring things until later. Because going back to what I was saying before, what does that lead to? That leads to procrastination. And so when we procrastinate, we become stuck in where we actually are. So by embracing the boredom, we actually get rid of the boring things and we get onto the good things. And
but not everybody does. I'm going to interject because they're in that habit of being bored and never doing anything. Yeah,
I know, but it's a willpower. But to get to that point, though, you have to have that willpower. The willpower in order to stop procrastinating and actually doing something. And well, first off, for those people who are actually sitting on their butt and not really doing anything creative and whatnot, why is it that you're not doing anything creative? Is there an actual reason behind it? And because those are the people that are more likely to say, I don't know what I'm doing in life. I just wish I could end it all tomorrow.
Well, okay. As a psychologist, I don't think people try to be bored. They mentally look at everything with a negative point of view and have plenty to say about their negativity and whatever it is they're on about, which keeps them so occupied that they can't even put that aside to think, what else is there in my life? Yeah. You see, choice. The world gives us choice. And again, going back to the DNA and the RNA, what the kid gets, if the kid's got, here's another example, I use that. A Japanese person, I won't say who, playing violin, came to me and she's #1 violin. And she hates it. Her parents are both different musicians, so they put her into the world of music. And she trained and trained and trained and trained. And all the way through it, the one thing I could hear from her all the time is there was no joy in it. It as brilliant as she was at playing, it was technique. Mm-hmm. And that's the same going back to sports. That's why I mentioned it. Like playing tennis, I could really get good at sussing out where they were going to hit it before they hit it by watching and paying attention rather than looking at the ball. I was looking at them. Okay. And so I'm saying that, children who are young in the early years, those 2 to 5 years, if they're given a lot of exposure to different types of fun and pleasure, hobbies, artistic talents, games, it builds their socializing self inside. They feel more confident with themselves when they go out into the world. And then they bump into people who haven't had that support. And those people are like, oh, you're too clever for your own good, and they make them a victim And I certainly was a victim many, many times in my life because people were jealous of the fact that I had a natural talent to do whatever it was I was doing. I didn't take it for granted either because I had spirit guides in my head. So my talent was different from the average Joe's talent, right? But there are going to be thousands, even millions and billions in another 100 years of psychic kids who are going to be channeling, writing, dancing, inventing new board games. Who knows what it's going to be? Okay. And so this is why I chose about creativity, because their starting point over the last 50 years has been all intellectual, and they've cut back on school sports, they cut back on school arts, they cut back on meditation in school, they can't have any more prayers anymore. I mean, those were the stables that gave a school a solid foundation stone where the children, even if they didn't like the rules, respected them and obeyed them. But now the kids are in revolution. They're saying, I don't want to go to school. I don't like that teacher. And mum says, well, you've got to go. And then she takes her to school. She leaves. They run off and play hockey.
Yeah. I just want to bring up too that there are a lot of myths behind creativity for those people who are a little lost, a little undirectional in terms of where they want to go and who they want to be in their life. But here's the thing. You can learn how to be more creative, but creativity is mostly a skill. It's not just a gift, and these skills can be developed. That's the number one thing about, creativity requires the courage to let go of certain certainties. And so most of us think that creativity has the ability to paint a stunning picture, or write a best-selling book, or design a beautiful building, or compose moving music, and that you are either born creative or not. And that's
which is not true, that you're not. We are all born creative.
Natural talent, though, I will say that natural talent is not the major component of creativity. And so you don't need an innate talent in order to be creative. And this is where most people get tripped up. Most creative people will admit that their creativity is 10% talent and 90% work. They own the work that the hard work that they do, because they are practicing and polishing their skills, not gift, skill, each and every single day. A violinist does not become a great violinist without practicing.
No, exactly. That's why she hated it. But that's not, in my opinion, that is spoiling the creative essence. If she'd have been, now there was another child on, I watched obviously the talent shows a lot. There was a little boy came on, he was 9, I think, or 10, had a violin or something, a small one. They asked him what he's going to do and play his music instrument. He said yes. And then they said, why did you want to come here? And he said, because I was bullied at school. Okay. And I hope there's a lot of people listening who've been bullied, because I want you to understand that the creative artistic talent, as an example of this child, was his mum agreed, the teacher agreed, they taught him all the techniques, so he knew how to fiddle his fingers and do all that, obviously, know all these scales and things. And then his innate or natural talent kicked in, and that kid played that thing like a senior has been playing forever. And he took regular music and doctored it according to his feelings, his emotion, and the whole house gave him a standing ovation even before it finished. Now, what do you think that did for his psyche? It made him so full of joy. And they actually said to him, the judges said, now you can see all those bullies are never going to bother you again, because you're going places and that bully isn't. And so let's come back to bullying. You know, a lot of kids are dealing with that right now. And it comes down to jealousy, because these kids who haven't had the support, the training, the introduction to whatever it is in some way, they're minus these very important creative things that people do. And so they don't get the lessons in socializing. So in order to feel they're equal, they got to pull down those that have talents and skills. I've seen it so many times. And those who have the natural talents and skills, they get bullied so much that they want to give it up. But the thing is, you can't, because it's in your blood. Mm-hmm. It's in your soul, which brings me to the psyche. Okay. When you started drawing and doodling recently, that was your psyche working, wasn't it?
Yep.
And so you now got it where? Up on a gallery? Yes. Want to give it a little plug so everybody can see what you've been doing?
I have a gallery. I certainly do. I don't even know if I can pull it up on screen. Let me see if I can.
Well, if you can find the address and they can write it down and look with pleasure in their own tongue, because you've got a lot up there.
Yeah, I do. I do have a lot.
Well, while you're looking, I'm just going to go on and say that psychologically, the first 5 years of life are the foundation stones of any child's life. They're going to grow up on those 5 years. And I really firmly believe that I had even though my parents were at 6s and 7s all the time, that the common factor between them was to make sure we girls got a taste of everything and made sure that we did follow through, not just do it once and come home and say, I'm not any good, I can't do it, but say, go back. You need to do it at least 4 or 5 times. And if you don't like it after that, you don't have to do it. So my sister, for example, she was in tap dancing classes and she was okay, but she wasn't enjoying it. She wanted to do horse riding instead. So off she went and had classes in horse riding. Me, I didn't want to get on a horse. I didn't get on a horse till I was an adult. So, you know, each of us has this DNA coding. And here I'd like to just mention, when you show if you find it, let me know. Our soul vibration has chosen before we come down, it's in our soul coding to be able to manifest a talent, a skill, a focus, and the direction, purpose we want to live our lives in whatever country we're born to. And, you know, it's not unusual for those who are restricted and limited by circumstances, whatever they may be, to finally grow up one day and say, I need a talent, I need a skill, and throw away whatever's blocked them mentally, emotionally, and open up the passion, as you said, and the desire to either go back to a class or school or something, or just sit down and just do. And here's another example. I have a friend who's now retired, but we've known one another for over 20 years. And she just out of the blue went and took a few classes from an artist up the road. And that was also partly because we were doing readings and talking. And when I finally saw this oil painting that she did, she invited me over, she'd done several. It was like a Christmas scene with all the snow and the deers and, you know, that kind of thing. And I said to her, you should take a photo of that and send it off to Harlequin or something. You know, people do cards and things. And immediately she went, oh, nobody's want my work. Mm-hmm. And I said, they're excellent. Go find the doctors, put them up on the office and put your card on, you know, $75 or whatever you want for it, and see if somebody will buy it. She sold a few, but she didn't have that belief and that passion in what she was actually channeling. She knew she was channeling. She got this overwhelming feeling, and then off she went, just like when I write a book, okay? And so she knew they were good, but she couldn't say, I did it, I'm good, you know? And I'm just reading, I just finished reading The Rejection Syndrome, because that was written so long ago, 2004, I think it was. And I couldn't remember what was in it. And I've been telling everybody about it, and everybody's coming back to me and telling me it's really good book and stuff. But anyway, I read it as a reader because I couldn't remember what was in it. And I closed that book and I said, I am a writer. Yeah. Because up until then, I've always been saying everything I write is channeled, and it is. But when I'm with them, we write. So if I'm them with them, I am a writer. See what I'm saying? So I never thought of it as my talent. And now, over this last week from reading that book, and because it's a rejection syndrome, I had to face myself and get that out of the book and say, I do have the talent of being a creative writer. Now, when I was in school, I believed my English teacher, because I was dyslexic, that I'm no writer. So I had that in my head right up until last week. So that's how much someone's comments can put us down and make us, even though we struggle, we go over the top of it and other things happen, that underlining original hurt is there. And that blocks an awful lot of people from going out and finding their creative ability. You don't have anything to say about
that? It does. It really does. Now, for those who are looking for my art gallery, it is up on Art Placer. You just have to go to Art Placer. Art Placer. ART Placer, PLACER.com. And just look up either Soma Fusion Media or Katie Kamara, and you're going to find the art gallery up that way. So that is great. But this is one of my latest works right here.
Is that the miserable you or somebody else?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, it looks like you.
Oh, thanks.
No, but it's nice. No, but you see, that if you had a lot of time, I think that was amazing. When I saw that, that was fantastic.
I like this one.
And it's totally in proportion, and it really shows you channeled that to me. Look how you've got his abs all right and all those little muscles and things, you know. And I know when I was doing artwork channeling, I used to draw spirit guides for people, because that was what they wanted in those days. And I would just sit there and I'm just drawing away, but I knew I was being led. Look, that's nice, isn't it? Loving hands. See, now, did you think before you started, I want to draw loving hands, or did you just happen?
Not at all. It just happens.
Yeah. See, that's the difference between when your spirit guides are working with you and when you're on your own. You know, they're fantastic. She's got really good artists with her, and they come out perfectly. So anyone who's out there who thinks they can't draw, I suggest that you think about how psychic you are, read some books, learn, and then just sit down with a piece of paper like Katie did and scribble and see what comes out.
Well, actually, we're going to back up a little bit because in order to get to that point, you need a daydream. Daydreaming when your mind is unconstrained. So while you can't change your physical reality, you can go wherever your mind pleases. And when your mind goes wherever you please, that's when your mind is now open. So open to doodle. And if anyone doesn't know what doodling is basically a rough drawing made absent-mindedly. And what happens is some of the most creative, innovative people in history, not just the world, but in history, were doodlers. I don't know if you know anybody that was a doodler in history, but the doodlers that are very well known, and you listeners out there would know who these are, like Pablo Picasso, Ernest Hemingway, Federico Fellini, and also Steve Jobs was a doodler. And of course, you've got the American presidents, for those who didn't know that these people were doodlers as well. Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, John F. Kennedy, Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, and
You got a list there.
and Barack Obama too. So Obama.
Yeah. Well, aren't you a doodler? I am. I notice that when I'm on the phone with someone, I got a pen because I'm waiting to write their notes or something. And, according to, it varies. I tend to be symmetrical, like writing, drawing little blocks. I can't say the word blocks, BLOCKS. And then one next to it and one next to it. Sometimes I do a pyramid, or then I'll go into a circle and I'll do swirls. And they're very, something I've had since I remember sitting at the table with all my pencils and rulers and drawing all these shapes. They were just in my head and I just drew them. Of course, I didn't know what they were really till I got into geometry class later, which I wasn't very good at. I could still draw a lovely diagram, but I couldn't prove my equal points to this and that and so on. I didn't get it. And so I want people to really get out of this show that you have to start somewhere. And if you're one of these people that says, I have no talent, I have to say to you, you have a talent just in your existence by being able to get up, go to the bathroom, wash yourself, get yourself dressed, decide where you're going to drive yourself or walk where you're going to put yourself. That's a talent in itself in taking care of your body. So if you can take care of your body, you can also take care of your emotions by listening to them and giving vent to them. If you're angry, paint a picture of anger. Even if it's just orange stuff all over your blobs of brown and black, it means something to you, which is the same as you say Picasso or someone just swirling and doing something with the colors. It went to his blue mood, his green mood, or red mood, and so on.
So on top of that, we're going to realize that by doodling, we're actually providing. We don't even know it, but we're actually providing a window into psychology as well as the personality of the person who is doodling.
Yeah, it is. That's a valid point.
When people doodle, their brains can subconsciously solve problems and generate original ideas. And so that's how we tap into that and navigate into that. But before we get on to actual art, we have to really admire the surrealism that goes behind the thoughts and creative ideas when we actually go from doodling to art itself. That's the missing piece in between, that bridges between doodling and art and creating the art itself, because surrealism allows us to go, and of course, it's something of 20th century art movement if you want to actually talk about art itself. But surrealism really is the exploration of hidden depths of the unconscious mind, basically going from the rational world into searching for a brand new reality, which is exactly what daydreaming is really about. And so we're creating, and we may see it as a way of escapism because we are trying to get away from the mundane life that we all live. However, it allows us to eliminate the uncertainty that we have in our subconscious mind in order to become creative. And so when we go into creating art, the benefits of doing that is basically to make you relax, reduces your stress, it improves your critical thinking skills. We're all trying to figure out how to improve our brain function. And by improving our critical thinking skills, we are able to do a hell of a lot more. And in essentially what it does is it eventually helps us improve our concentration. So therefore, when we go to our job and we are sitting there going, I don't really like this. Now we can actually creatively concentrate and use our critical thinking skills in order to improve the job that we are already doing, make it a lot more fun than just sitting there thinking, oh, I'm just a number cruncher, maybe in an accountant's desk or something like that. What's so important about that? My job is nothing, why I'm not important, and so you go into the negativity there. But I mean, you can have creative hobbies, and that's what a lot of people, even in psychology, what are you not doing? Do you have a hobby? Would it be coloring? Would it be knitting? Would it be quilting, photography? I mean, we're all taking selfies out there on social media. So why aren't we turning those selfies into art? And a lot of people do that. Maybe woodworking, how to make pottery, how to garden, how to do this DIY.
Well, the list goes on, doesn't it?
It really
but the ultimate thing, though, I'm interrupting you, sorry, but the ultimate thing is that people know what all the talents are. We could listen to cows come home, as we say, but it's those blocks, of the, I keep coming back to the children. I want to say very clearly that if they haven't got the support and the encouragement to paint, draw, climb a mountain, which is a wall or something at their age, and explore their potentials, playing the games like sports it's all about movement. And most of the people that I've had to deal with over the years as clients or patients, especially if they've got something serious like heart issues, always, my husband was a very typical example, so I can use him, of procrastination. I'm not as good as you. Stop comparing yourself with me. I'm not you. You're not me. You're equally fine in your own. You can do whatever you want. Go do it. Oh, I can't. I'm too tired. I can't be bothered. Or I have to go and edit your book for you. As my father said to me, my earlier books, the first 8 or 9, 10 of them, I let him get away with editing, and they're Americanized and short sentences, whereas the written books I've done later are verbose, because that's the way I talk. And I've actually had some people say to me, I've read what he's done and what I've done, and they've actually come back to me and said, I prefer the way you write. I can understand the way you write. So that brings me back to a lot of things with children, and I try and be very, I'm not putting down people, I'm just using the example. When I'm with people who are stressed and depressed and whatever, I try and be the comfort zone of that motherly figure, in that I'm there for them, I feel them, I counsel them accordingly in the way that they can hear it. And I could have 10 people with all the same issue, and I would not be saying the same thing in the same way to them, which brings me to what I'm going to say, which is too many people are in routines of habit where there is no overview of themselves or speculation of what more they can do, or how they can rearrange their time, or socializing, with people who like to do something different that the rest of the family doesn't, and so on. We have to go on a quest in our mind, whatever it is, to want to do it. If we don't have that quest, that seeking, that searching for something within us, then we could be locked down for a whole life and never, ever explore our creativity. So where does the spiritual side come in? Well, I've learned, obviously, as a medium, that 100% the spiritual side with my spirit guides and everything is we are a team. So if I'm on my own and I'm giving a talk, they'll leave me sometimes, and I am on my own and I give my talk, and I'm happy doing that, and I don't feel I've done a bad job, and and I come away, yeah, I've reached a few people and they're going to go home and hopefully it'll change their lives. But when I've got the spirit guides with me, my soul is lifted. Do you understand the difference? It's like I'm on cloud 9 while I'm working, whereas when I'm just me on my own, I'm focused, and I'm talking, and do you have any questions? And what do you want to know? You know, kind of thing. Whereas when they're with me, I'm just verbose. I'm just going on. And I suddenly realize, hey, you haven't let me stop to say something or do something. So bringing that as a talent into my life, I compare that in a way with someone who will go on stage with their guitar and play and sing a song. They are inspired. They can't help it. They got their spirit guides with them, and they just walk on that stage, and it's like this other personality comes out, like that little child I was talking about. Our spirit guides are able to help us bring out the talent. So even if you're listening to this and you've never had any support from any family members or teachers or anything, as long as you can remember, learn to be psychic and learn to channel your spirit guides, and they will teach you, bring out in you the subliminal DNA of your ancestors where there is talent. Now, you might not think much of gardening as a talent, but why is it I go out and garden and everything dies the next day? No, I worked on farms and everything. I learned everything about everything, and I knew what to do. But in England, I had a whole big garden. I put a whole lot of stuff in, won't bore you with everything. And guess what? We had the biggest drought ever in England, and we had cracks in the soil. It was like 2 feet deep. And here am I out there dribbling my little drops of water at midnight to try and keep my plants alive. Well, of course, I felt guilty too, but they all died. You know, and that's frustrating when people are talented and they got a gift, and someone comes along and spoils it. That puts them down. And then they think, oh, I'm not talented. Or if I do use it, I'm never going to use it again because, you know, it can't be that good. They talk themselves out of using their talents. And I can tell you there were many times in my life when I nearly talked myself out of it, but I got those guides. No, you're not going to do that.
How many times have that? But back then you kind of couldn't do what you can do now. And for those who are actually stuck in, my plant has died, I can't bring this back to life. We all talk about research. Well, why don't we find out? It's not as simple as back then where you used to go down to a library and go research whatever you know, or go to your next door neighbor who might have a green thumb, who might know how to bring a plant back to life. These days, it's all going, let's go over to YouTube and let's see a tutorial about how we...
You just press my button with the word research.
And we need to go onto YouTube, and we need to read, and we need to take some notes from these little YouTube videos because everything is now practical.
And I'm doing a lot of research, and over the years I've had to do a lot of research in different ways for my career, and I labored with research. I admit it. I labored. I have to read pages of this. And just recently, my granddaughter called me up. She has a paper to do. I'm not going to the whole story, but as a result of it, it was a button pusher. And I got off the phone and I was sad and different things happened. And I sat down and I thought, what is this? And the word that came to me is research. She was doing research not in the right way, and I was doing my research for her in what was not the right way. So we missed one another. And, you know, there are times when people on this planet, shall we say, let's say Edison, you know, working on a light bulb, and then there was others as well. There was a whole bunch of them all trying to do it. And I can't remember the name of the person who actually got a light bulb to flicker first. It was before Edison. Sorry. More research I didn't do. You know, so the oneness is not just coming through one of us. They may give, let's say there's a song. They want to get over the point of the words of a song. They may give that word to 3,900,000 people, of which 1% or whatever it is, do get it, but they're in different countries, in different languages, in different situations. So all of a sudden we get similar songs being played in different languages. Oh dear. I'm still clearing from last week. It goes on and on. It's so much of our life. So there are lots of people who are doing the same things, but it comes out of them differently. Oh, here I go. I'll blow my nose now. My eyes will run. So there is one thing that I see that is destructive. It's competition with peers. Oh dear. I have to admit, I've had a lot of people compete with me, and I'm like, why are you competing with me? Well, I want to be like you. I want to be better than you. I want to be, you know, and it's like, why can't you just be yourself and just enjoy being yourself? And so when I was talking about research as well, it was a keynote just now at Starting Your Coffee. I'm also researching myself way back to infancy, because we are all a work in progress. As we evolve, we try different things. Well, supposedly we try different things. It doesn't matter whether we're successful or not. It's the act of trying that shows us that we have some kind of talent. And then if we practice it afterwards, because we like it and love it, somewhere the spirit kicks in and outflows all the energy, and that perfect thing, whatever it is you're doing, happens. And I can tell you there, I'm not mentioning names, I don't believe in throwing people's names around, but there are some famous people who got out there on one song because it was like a channeled song. And then they wrote others and others, and they didn't quite fit, and they didn't quite, you know, and they lost their glory. And then they turned to drink, and then they ended up not being here. You know, whereas there's other people like Dolly Parton, who's always channeling. You know, all her songs, every one of them goes out there, and people want to sing it and upgrade it and downgrade it to a different kind of tune or something, which is the way people are. They're creative. We're all inventors and we're all creative. So if I write a book, let's say on my thesis, I want to work on beauty crystal acupuncture. Very big job that is, very big job to write that. And then I gave it to you, and you read 3 chapters, and something in you sparked, and then you thought, I want to go for a tangent, and then you open up to a whole bunch of new things that I haven't done. That's growth, that's expansion, and that goes on. Well, we've been seeing that as I began with the technical age. We've seen a tremendous amount of growth in the technical age, but we haven't seen any balance in our unification between the peoples of the world. We're at 6s or 7s. We're still saying my religion's better than your religion. We're still saying that my point of view on, you know, art or music or whatever we want to throw out is not my type. So-and-so sings better. So-and-so does something. There's always judgment and condemnation against the people who are successful or have a good something or other that they're sharing. And those jealous people, as I mentioned earlier, come along and try and destroy it. And we've seen a lot of destruction in the Middle East. Okay. What were they fighting about? I don't think they even know what they were fighting about anymore. I mean, the Taliban are back over there destroying everything again, but they don't have any leaders. They don't have anybody who knows how to lead. So it's a whole bunch of men wandering around being cruel to everybody. And we Americans were policing it. But why were we policing over there when we should be policing here on our doorstep? Why? Because we want to escape this routine of restriction and limitation, and going over there to help out there gives us a purpose. I'm going to bring that right back into your creative artistic talents give you purpose.
Mhm.
And without them, you're just bored, as you said. But when you're bored, what are you doing? You're doing a habit thing over and over again, right? And when you're doing the same thing over and over again, what happens to this brain box? It shrivels.
Yeah.
So somebody was doing some research on Einstein and, you know, a few of the people, and they got his brain, actually, Einstein's brain, in I was going to say vinegar, wine, something, so, you know, some kind of spirit, and it's preserved, and they pull it out every so on, and they're comparing other people's brains with his brain because they want to find out why Einstein had a brain that could go where nobody else goes. Well, it's not in the brain material, it's in the way he used the brain material to put out his ideas. Okay. Now, the brain in itself, in the early days, you come in through the womb and everything, and you pop out. It's all stimulated the moment you take a deep breath. And whatever is deeply subliminal won't be shown until you're probably an adult. Okay. Unless you've got parents who are also programmed in that area to bring it out in that child. And right now, what I'm seeing is a whole bunch of parents who have got psychic children and don't know what to do with them. And those psychic children have a lot of creativity in them. They're inventors. They're going to invent the future and whatever is out there that they're going to have and live with. And if we don't encourage them to actually go forward with their creative ideas and make things and do things. So now I'm going to go over to metal workers. Long time ago, if I wanted a thimble, I had to go to a metal worker, let him measure my finger, and he would actually make me a thimble for my sewing. So all those women who made quilts and socks and things for all the men who were at war in the Civil War, they had to have a lot of thimbles. So somebody was making a lot of thimbles, okay? Today, they go into a machine, a piece of sheet of paper, metal, pump, 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 pump. Thousands of thimbles are made and put in sewing kits. And guess what? My little research that I did once upon a time, most people don't use a thimble because they use their thumbnail or something. And I said, why aren't you using a thimble? Because I was taught to use a thimble. So my example is, if you've got the tools and you've been shown how to use them, use them. And as you said, practice makes perfect. The more you do, the better you become. But you've got to taste it. You've got to want it.
Yes, but the other thing is too is that, you know, you have to have balance and order and chaos.
It's true.
You have too much physical clutter can make you feel stressed out, overload your senses, and even make it harder to think creatively.
Well, that's exactly another thing that went out the window.
But just the right amount of clutter can actually help you think and solve problems more creatively. So, and again, that's about improving our critical thinking skills. How much is too much?
Well, number one, we need the brain, obviously, to process. And when we've got 101 negatives around us, the brain loses control and we start crying and feel depressed and miserable and so on. I want you to flip it over to the other side. When you have, even, there's always chaos. There's been chaos all week, all month, actually, for us. But the bottom line is, if you're processing it in the right way, and you're looking in a way like in the overview, at your circumstances, you can make changes in your schedule, you can make changes in your point of view, you can make changes in your mentality, you can make changes in your emotion, and you can definitely pull on your spirit self to make changes entirely. I had just someone last year who came to me for a session, and he was so rigidly stuck. Mm-hmm. And I felt like, oh, what am I doing here? I don't really want to waste my time doing this, you know. But I finally found a way. He was doing something and he was fixing something with tools. And he was frustrated. He threw it across the floor and said, I can't fix this thing. And I said to him, then don't fix it. Why do you need it? He said, well, I thought I could put stuff on my car. I said, but do you need it? You've been managing for 10 years without it. Is it going to make you better? And then he said, oh, I don't think so. Next 2 days later, he'd driven off somewhere else. I don't know where he is now. He's used to send me messages, but I told him he's fine. But he came up with something else he wanted to do in that moment. In that desperation, he said, I would love to be out in a camping ground, taking care of, these areas where people come in summer and camp. But they need someone during the winter to watch over it. So I said, well, go and ask for a job. He did, and he got one. But he wouldn't have done that if you hadn't got frustrated with trying to fix a thing on his car.
And that's the classic example of serendipity. When we look in one direction, we get to that impasse, and we go in a completely different direction. It's the same with these shows that we do. These shows that Margaret and I do each and every single week for you guys is very, very unscripted. We don't have any notes sitting in front of us that we are actively talking about. We're literally having a conversation, including you listeners out there, into it. And so this is basically based on two very different personal experiences, but whether it be academically or spiritually inclined. And we put together and we actually come up with, and that's the whole point, is that we are creative in every word that we say, in the essence that we are literally thinking in the moment. Now, had we have done some research about the things that we talk about, and I mean, without the fact of acknowledging that our knowledge is extensive, at the same time, because we're winging it, so to speak, that means our critical thinking skills and our tendency to procrastinate is not there, but our critical thinking skills and our creative mind is at play each and every second of this show. So that's just one example of how our creative minds actually work without having to say, hey, maybe did I say that wrong?
Well, conversation in itself is very important. And I know that when I was little, I was lectured, and I did the same with my sons. I lectured them because that's what I was taught. Behavior, experiences, responsibilities, a lot of things like that, that I got from my parents, I pass on to my children, and I hear them telling their children the same thing. So here is an awakened experience of watching the DNA working from generation to generation. But we also have the RNA, and the RNA is all the influences of all the people you've ever met. And your spirit gave me that I have, on average, for the 50 years I've been teaching, taught 1,000 people a year. That sounds a lot, but those are the ones I can count on. I don't know people who came in the back of the room, listened, and walked out. I don't know people who are in another country or watching my videos or something. The same with you. We don't really know how many people we've interacted with in our lives, but every one of those people we've interacted with has left a dye in us, a cast, a feeling, a sense, a something, a lesson. There's no point in trying to analyze it, because whatever they've done in some way has either left a scar or left a jewel, depending on what they've done with us. And, you know, we made, like, my first teacher in my class, when I counted to 100, first one in my class, which is funny because I'm bad at math. I can remember my numbers and my tables about it. But, you know, when I stood up and did that to 100, her face shone with so much delight that I felt proud. And these emotions, you know, pride is supposed to be a deadly sin. I don't think it is. I think we need pride in what we do.
Well, yes, we do. But a pride is a healthy balance. Again, we're going to go back to balance here. If your pride is, let's just say, way up here, but your other part of you is way down here, you've got an unbalance. And so what happens is that pride becomes ego. It becomes your self-righteous view of what pride really is. But if pride is here and your ego is here, to put it into an analogy, then, and it's balanced, then pride is actually something that we are proud of, something that we appreciate about ourselves.
And that's the key word, proud. We can easily be proud of our children. We can easily be proud of our parents surviving them. They're all families, and we can be proud of them. Okay. But at the same time, we can also be angry with them because they're not doing what we want them to do or something. So, yeah, when I talk about pride, I'm bringing it into the individual, to myself. And so if I say I'm proud of my journey through life, and I have pride in my talents and skills, but I'm not egotistical about it. And I think that's the difference. You know, I talk about things I've done, not because I want people to know what I've done. I talk about them as examples so that they can identify that example in their life. And then we get some harmony going so that we can then sort out the next step, which is better for them. And by their choices and so on, I give suggestions, they're going to come up with theirs too. And that's conversation. And there are a lot of countries where the women are not allowed to have a conversation because the men dominate them. Okay. And I've been in those countries and I've seen that going on, and it hurt me tremendously. I wasn't even thinking about women's freedom or anything in those days. I was just a woman who was going through something, and I'm standing right next to her, and she's being ranted and raved in Indian. I don't know what he was saying. And she's just like forlorn and dropped her head down, looking miserable. And I couldn't help myself. I went up and hugged her.
Yeah.
And that brings me to another point. Inhibition is one of the soul destroying emotions, or intellect, because it can be either way, soul destroying. And if you've got a young child who's really, you know, I can talk about the recorder because one of my kids was playing that, and he was doing pretty well, which later led to him learning what was it? Not an oboe, but something else like that, clarinet.
Yeah.
But you know, you've got to start somewhere, and that's my point. That a talent starts with just one crayon, and then a bit of paint, and then maybe a bit of oils, you know, just to be talking about painting. But it's the same with any talent. I mean, think about how a child struggles to learn to do a bow on their shoes in the beginning. And now we've got elastic shoes. Just slip them on, slip them off.
The problem is with that is that we're not actually learning anything. Everything is an act of convenience.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. A lot of the lessons are you know, in the beginning are struggles, but they lead to more. And if the child doesn't have any struggles, how can they realize what they've achieved if it's all made easy? And so they grow up expecting everything to be easy for them. And when they get out on the street, as it were, they find out it's not. And so they can't make money, or they can't get a job, or because they've wasted school years saying, I don't want to learn this or whatever. And there's a whole load of children all over this world they can't even read and write because no one's taught them. And this has got to change. We have to get across through the generations that are coming in the future that every child is entitled to learning, reading, writing, math, or whatever, and also their creative talents. Now, if you go over to India, Africa, or anywhere, you find the natives still doing the beadwork that we buy in the store for $2. Now, I don't know what they get for that, but I bet you it's pennies on the dollar. And someone else who's the middleman or the triple middleman or woman or whatever is making more money than they are. But coming back to the creativity, if you want that kind of necklace, why don't you try and learn to make it yourself? Because there's plenty of bead shops, you know, and there's a lot of retired women who go to that to make jewelry themselves and then sell it or whatever. But why aren't the kids learning this? You know, my grandma taught me to knit and crochet when I was 7, 8 years old. And that's when your brain is ready to learn, you know. And I remember being all awkward and taking the, you know, but it was the same time it was fun and bring it through. And, oh, I've got a hole and I've dropped a stitch. And what do I do, Granny? Okay, well, you have to pull it up and use this hook and do this and this, which opened the door for crochet.
I was brought up with the, you know, home economics. It is still taught in schools. However, it's not really a huge part of the curriculum. I know in elementary schools that they do have, you know, introduction of you know.
I'm going to interrupt you. Define your age is different from mine. Define, what do you say, home economics? Because I never heard that when I was in school. We had crafts and art and cooking. They were called what they were called. And that's another thing that drives me crazy is all these we talked about some another show, but all these modernisms don't tell us what they are. So what is it?
Home economics, I did, shit. Oh.
Is that what you did?
No, I had to think for a second. You know, it started out, you know, we did sewing. That was one of our classes. We did cooking. We did basically art was a very, very separate. So it was basically anything that we would classify as house husbandry.
See, that's a new word. House husband. Why husbandry?
I just made that up.
Oh, well, what's it mean to you?
Basically what we can do to provide in the home. So cooking is one of them. Sewing and crafts is another.
No, wait. I'm not letting you get away with husbandry. Okay. Where's that word come from? What's it mean besides a husband? Is that house husbandry? You're in the house, running the house for your husband?
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, that's got to go, isn't it? It's an old-fashioned.
Well, we already know that. Basically entitled like that. However, because it was done in school, they were including the guys in it too. So the guys don't actually grow up cooking Roman noodles or knowing just that's the only meal choice that they get without a woman having to cook for them. Not saying that actually does occur, but it does occur, unfortunately.
And most of the big restaurants around the world used to only have male chefs. So they would come home and I'm not cooking. The wife had to struggle, but now women are taking over. So it's good. But I just wanted to mention that. That's a creative thing too. When you're icing a cake, you're creative.
But in school, when I was going to school, back in my elementary days, I was living out in the country, so my elementary schooling was literally home economics, where we actually had a full-on cooking class. We had to learn how to sew. We had to learn how to make our own blankets, our own clothes. Men, boys and girls, mind you, keep that in mind. It wasn't just a female thing. Then, of course, I had also what's called agriculture, and agriculture is where I did cattle rearing. I learned how to do sheep shearing. I had to learn how to grow my own plot full of a self-sustaining vegetable garden, how to grow flowers, how to water them, how to look at horticulture.
I want to interject here. A, you're Australian. B, I'm British, and they're under the British Queen. So we got the same kind of social, economical, whatever you said, type of way of learning. It's different from America.
America is completely different. So that, well, good point taken. So yeah, and so it's kind of subtly here in the United States, depending on what state you're living in and what the educational curriculum system that they're applied in that particular school. But it is adapted in a certain degree, but it's not extensive. It is usually like a vocational thing that you do in college and whatnot, if you want to further it. Or something that your mother would teach you in a home setting, especially where it comes to knitting and crocheting and sewing and things like that.
And most mums can't do that though.
No, not in this era. I know I grew up, like I said, I grew up knitting. I hadn't learned how to crochet, but my mother learned how to crochet. I just didn't have any fascination for crocheting. But knitting, I absolutely enjoyed. I'd sit there in front of the TV as a 6 or 7 year old just doing it, and I wouldn't even know that my hands are actually knitting.
Because it becomes a habit. You don't have to look at it and feel it. See, that's another thing about the creativity. When you really get into it, no matter what it is, and we could never mention them all, but I want to come back to music. When you're playing whatever it is, piano, whatever, you're so into it. You're not thinking, is my finger on the key C or is my finger on D, like when you first learn. And in fact, my son that I told you about, the play, he loves to play the drums, raps that, he writes songs, he does all that. And I'll go over and I'll say, "What, that was great what you played last week. Can you play again?" He says, "What?" I was just making it up. And that's the point. The creativity makes it up. It just oozes out of you, right? And he had this fangle-dangle piano that records everything. And so he recorded it and it didn't work. He was really frustrated. Technical again, see, it let him down. Whereas if he'd had old-fashioned cassette player, we would have got it all, because it was really a beautiful piece he was playing. But that's just one example where technical stuff can let us down. And yeah, on another sense, if we minus the technical and we improv, we're better. Yeah, because we're not thinking about it.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing, is that we can't rely on some of that old school technology that we used to have.
Why not? Why not?
Because part one, unless you actually have it collecting dust in your garage, then we don't have a tape player.
Well, I have dust in my garage. Actually, I was hunting high and low for a tape player that also copies it onto a CD, a SanDisk. But I couldn't find it. So it looks like we're going to have to go buy another one, because I've got hundreds of classes, lectures and things all recorded on those cassettes. And I mean hundreds. And I don't even, because they're so old, because I was teaching in England, a lot of recordings in those days, and I don't even know if they'll play, but I won't know till I find a player and play them. And if I do, what's that going to do? I'm not going to copy that. It's going to inspire me to understand, hey, I've come a long way from then to now. What more do I want to do now? Let's go into the next step. And that coming back to creativity, whatever your talent is, it's always review and move on, review and move on, you know. And even, you know, famous singers who sing the same song over and over again, if you compare the original with how they're singing now, they've adapted it according to how they've adapted. So things don't stay the same, and it's important that we understand that. And we can't all be Picassos, but we can all throw paint at a wall and do something with it.
It's not what you throw, it's how you throw it.
That's true. Actually, I was a model for one part of my life, and I had to put on this white bodysuit, and then he just had a piece of board, I don't know, probably I'm trying to remember, it's 12 by 8, and he just dolloped all this paint on there. And then all I had to do, and I had to get my hair all full of paint as well, because I had long hair down here in those days. And I had to roll around in all this paint and splash and blob, you know, and I just did it. I got into it. I loved it. I would feel the paint on my body. I didn't care. You know, I didn't fuss on it. And after he just told me, do it until you've had enough. And I did. And when I got up, immediately I looked down at it and I went, oh, I've missed a spot and I missed a spot. And he said, no, you haven't. It's perfect. Okay. So I said, well, what you can do with it? He said, oh, it's going into an exhibition. And he did. And it ran third prize, he told me later.
Wow.
And you know, I don't know what he did with it after that. And I used to go on model for him sometimes. You get paid in those days. Wasn't much, £5 or something. But you know, it was fun. It was fun to do that, and I was so grateful to him for giving me that opportunity to feel myself rolling around in paint and all over my hair and flipping my hair like this because it would flip and that would whip out a color, because he was telling me to whip my head, you know, and stuff like that. And that was the freedom of the 60s. You weren't born then, were you?
The previous lifestyle, yeah.
But that was the 60s and the flower power and all that was going on. And we were in revolution from the old ways of restrictions and limitations. Well, we're going now into this Aquarian age, and we are going to go in the next 10 years into another revolution. Because we're going to be saying, we don't want people telling us that isn't true. We don't want people doing hearsay, in other words. We don't want people lying to us. Why? Because we're all psychic and we can tell when you're lying. So why lie? So yeah, we'll start to get a truthful world in time.
The good question, or the better question here to ask is, why lie in the first place if you know it's going to bite your butt and later on down the track?
Well, in the first place, back in the Piscean age, lying was the thing because it was all lying, conquering, poison and whatever, and it's his fault, he did it, and the person who actually did it got away with it. But over time, with justice and all the, I won't bore you with history, you know, we've come into an age where we fought for the freedom of the world, 2 world wars, for the freedom of the world. And here's America trying to be the one who frees everybody, but everybody out there doesn't want us in their face. Yeah. Okay. And so the Aquarian age is about feed our own, clothe our own, build our own, whatever our own is, and give these kids what they need, the right education, the right sports, the right music classes, whatever, you know, the list can go on, and build the colleges where they can go and get training so they want to do more.
Which is exactly why we built the Samaras Education Center and Solutions in the Universal Christchurch, because we need students who are very much curious people who want to learn about different subjects, who want to add their contribution to the world after they are trained in whatever field that they're trained educating through us.
And when you develop your psychic ability, and you don't have to become a medium or anything like that, you can just develop your 5 senses, which is psychometry, sense of feeling energy in your body, clairvoyancy, visualization of images, clairsentience, the thoughts that you're thinking and what you're hearing as it's coming into you and how you respond to that. And then there's a did I say clairaudience? That was thinking, whatever. And then the clairsentience, which is smell and taste, and everything comes together in your body. And these 5 senses can run riot, get the right word out, riot, if we don't master it. So we could get angry and then suddenly psychically get an earthbound around us who's saying, go on, go hit them, go bully them. And you think it's your own mind saying that, so you go hit them, you go bully them. There's a lot of people who don't know that they're actually got earthbound people around them, people who've died and they haven't moved on. And I have talked about this on my show, so I'm not going to push that here. But that is another side of creativity where we can be pushed into negative circumstances and become like whoever is in the negative circumstance. And then we lose sight of our purpose on earth and we become traumatized in negativity to the point where we tell ourselves, I'm worthless, I want to commit suicide. And all it would take, as it did with me, I didn't commit suicide, I've taken pills for my PD, but I was overdosing myself because I kept shaking. But, when I came back, my interest in survival was not from what I knew, it was from what I felt. And believe you me, I knitted a lot of things and sewed a lot of things. And even I made wax, you don't see this anymore. You used to go out and pick sticks up and then you would come back with some wax and you'd make little wax flowers on them. And then we'd give them away at Christmas or Easter or something like that. There were so many wonderful things that my generation got to experience that are lost, absolutely lost.
Even for me, we know that Thanksgiving and Christmas is coming up and all of the festivities that come at the end of the year. And for me, in my family, we make the decorations. We don't, yes, we still have baubles and all that kind of stuff up in a Christmas tree and whatnot, but we make all the because I'm a little bit old school. Let's just say, yeah, I'm a little old school with my parenting, and that is to involve my children in the creation of this celebration itself. And what the celebration itself is all about family. And so why not have a better opportunity to as a parent to teach your children how things could be and how to inspire that creativity by doing arts and crafts for Christmas or whatever.
Yeah, we used to, because of World War II, we used to actually make our own Christmas cards as well.
Well, how many families now do play cards at, the play cards at the dinner table? I know I certainly grew up doing play cards, even if it wasn't the festive season.
Yeah, you see, that is the core too. We're touching on this. I know we're running out of time, but the core energy of family has been lost. Everybody loves a little house on the prairie, right? They all come together, they sort their issues out, wonderful, wonderful support from one another. And we all wish we had that. But the reality of the world is that we've all been exposed to war. And when we're exposed to war, we don't trust anymore. We don't believe anymore. And of course, if there's people around us who aren't supporting us, we don't believe ourselves even.
And it's not just that, is that a lot of people have been betrayed by certain actions or situations that they've been through. Or it could be a husband, a wife, or a family member, or a friend, or a child. And
yeah, even a child can go tell the policeman, my mum hit me. And there's a big investigation, you know, and all she's done is tap him on the head or something, you know.
yeah.
So, yeah, it's got to be a bit ridiculous about, you know, obviously we need to be sensible about chastising a child to teach them. But if the parent is just yelling and screaming and they don't know what they've done wrong, which often happened for me when I was young, and punished on the bed or, you know, whatever, I'd be crying because not because I've been punished, but because I didn't know what I was being punished for.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of latchkey kids that go through that. They don't, mum's home, or dad's home, they're all tired, or maybe he's been drinking or she's been drinking, who knows, you know, it could be a bad scenario. And they're supposed to find the harmony and the joy in that family. Okay. There's small wonder they're going to flock together with other kids on the street and be anti-parents and all these things. That's why we need to teach them how to read one another, to know when to speak, when not to speak. And I was so grateful that my spirit guides, you were always there. Like if dad was in a mood and it was likely I could get a tanning for nothing, I would become very restricted and I drop my head and if he talked to me, I'm like, yes, no, yeah, look at me, so all this kind of thing. And that was too strict. That was like fear of God in me, you know. And that's what a lot of mothers and fathers are like today, because they're so stressed, just like my father was, that they yell and scream and tell the kids they're wrong and this and that. And we can't have that. For this new generation that's coming in now for the Aquarian age, we have to listen and we have to understand what they're going through. And we have to find a way to teach them how to deal with the debris that's overlapping from the Piscean age into the Aquarian age. Because give it another 100 years, everything that we believe about the Piscean age, nobody will talk about it. Mm-hmm. Because they'll be in the future and their future, whatever they're doing. You know, it's the same for us. We reminisce about the 1800s, but we weren't there. We just like to watch the movies where they play all the drama out and let us know what's going on. But was it really like that? I think not. I think a lot of it was far worse than they show, because they have to be careful with what they put on videos now, because the kids are watching them. Whereas when I was a child, if anything was derogative to a child, it was an A grade movie or an X movie, and you couldn't go. Now it's all on television. You know, so what are they learning? Violence? Like I had years ago now, but I remember this well. They made a whole series of horror movies with people who had those swords that they cut trees down. What do you call those? Hacksaws? Not hacksaws. I'm not a tall person, but they have the chainsaw. Okay. Well, this kid was about 8 or 9, and this is about 25 years ago when I first came to America. And this kid was friendly with my kids. And he came in and he was talking about this movie, and he was pretending to attack my son with a pretend sword. And I actually said, would you stop playing that game? It's not a nice game, to him. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, Mummy, let me watch the movie. I said, did she? You know, what else could I say? I said, well, maybe next time you'd like to try and find a fantasy movie. To which Warren, my aware child at that time, says, I like whatever was on then in those days, it was Star Trek or something. And they sat and watched Star Trek together. And all that dominating, whatever he was doing to my son, I could see was annoying my son, because you don't want someone doing this all around you. So, you know, it's debilitating. And so we need parents to teach the children, if you're in someone's space, be soft. Don't be rash and push them and hit them or try and tumble with them unless you've got permission that they want to do it, i.e. in a judo class. You know, all my kids went to those things. My kids went to tap dancing classes, singing classes. I made sure they had everything, just like my parents did with me. It wasn't I could afford it. I scrounged and scraped, you know, to do it. And I think a parent will. But, you know, at least there was a whole bunch for us in Britain of school stuff for them to do after school. Here, I don't think there's anything going on after school now.
There is, but it's not. You have to look into it.
Or well, I'm going to look into it because I have got permission to talk to the local teachers at, you know, school about bullying, but I've just been too busy to even make that connection. But I think someone's got to talk about this because there's so much bullying going on, especially in the teenage years. You know, the girls will want the ladies' frocks or whatever they're looking for, tops. They walk around with their butts hanging out as shorts, and then they wonder why the boys abuse them. You know, I'm old-fashioned, I believe. I believe in not flaunting it.
You're modest. I'm modest, well, you
know. Yeah. Well, we've been talking a lot, and, you know, being creative, I want to just wind up on a positive note. Whether you're thinking you want to do some embroidery and you've never done it, sew, knit, make yourself a top, go to some shop where they sell yardage and ask them, do you have classes? And most places that do have classes, and they teach you how to cut out a pattern and how to sew it and all that kind of thing. If you're into arts and crafts, find those places and go and try. Don't go with an attitude you're going to make the best dress or the best pot. Go with, I'm going to have fun. And even if I throw my slab of clay on the wheel and it goes spinning across the room, that's not a failure. I just brought laughter to the people who saw it happen. And that happened to me. Because, you know, we all have laughter in our soul. We all have joy in our soul. And if your brain is up there judging every step you make, morning, noon, and night, you're going to be the most miserable person on the planet, as far as you're concerned.
Very much.
And then you get 2 miserable people and 10 miserable people and 24 and 1 million miserable people. And where are we? At war again? We don't need that.
Because we've got nothing better to do, apparently.
Well, you know, people are all about arm yourself with a gun, and you know, here we have this state is gun supporting. And somebody actually came up to me while I was out shopping with a flyer that said, I can't remember the exact words, but it did not impress me. Are you in danger? Buy a gun today because it will save your life. It was that kind of wording, short and big letters. And I just looked at it and I just put it in the trash. You know, that is sowing an idea you're going to be attacked and you need that gun, and someone who's insecure, they're going to go buy one, and then the government's laughing all the way home. He's got money in his pocket because he sold it. Meanwhile, that is a threat. There was just a case on the news recently where a guy was cleaning a gun. It went off and shot his friend, and there was a bullet in it. He obviously hadn't had any classes about take all the bullets out before you clean a gun, you know, or he's lying. We'll never know. But that's what we have to deal with, is truth. We have to clear up this mess of this world with truth, and truth comes through psychometry, because like I said, if someone's telling you a lie, you know, you feel that lie oozing out into your body, and you look at them and their eyes tell you they're lying and their face tells you they're lying, you know. So why are you even talking to them? Walk away. Don't try and, you know, if you say to someone you're lying, they'll go into this whole game of, no, I'm not, you're the one who's lying, and try and make you the guilty party. And of course, that goes on a lot with your peers in school. Well, you don't want to play those games. What you need to do is say, I'm above that. I am going to go off and do. So while they're saying whatever is negative, you just say, oh, I'm sorry, I have to leave. I have an art class. Even if you don't, but go do some art. Go paint, go draw, go write a book, whatever it is. Don't give up on yourself.
No.
Do you have any advice what to say?
And have a can-do attitude to everything. Be curious.
Curious. Yeah.
Curious is the key to
Be Alice in Wonderland.
yes. Go find the Mad Hatter. Put your Mad Hatter on. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter what you do as long as you're having fun and long as you are open and flexible enough to be curious to do it. All that's required. And have a little imagination, because imagination goes a long way to our creativity.
Now, if you're stuck and you know you want to get outside the box, either of us are available. She'll give you the contacts, but either is available to counsel privately. We do private sessions, and we're going to be doing more classes on relationships. We're just waiting for the timing and getting everything. It's a big challenge for us right now to get all the sites up, especially for Katie. And I'm trying to investigate all the legalities of building a university online. So we're working towards this project. We've been talking about it for a long time, at least I have, for 3 years. And it's not easy to build a university online. And so be patient with us. But meanwhile, we've got shows. She's got her show, I've got my show. We've got this together. And there's, other things that we can tell you about. She's going to do that because she's the good picture. Are you ready?
Oh, thanks. So for everybody who's looking for Margaret's radio show, you can go over to soundcloud.com / Dr. Margaret Speaks, and you can see over 130 archives that are up right now that you can go and learn about on any and various subjects that Margaret talks about. You can go to the samaracenter.com where you will find Margaret's PR stuff, all of her books, everything like that. Everything is included. Her articles as well, her redirection to the articles as well. You can go over to easypeasysolutions.org, samaraseducationcenter.com, and the universalchristchurch.com. You can also go over to askdrmargaret.com as well. And all of those is where you'll find Margaret's classes, and the classes that we talk, and the free talks that we actually offer each week. You can.
And we're behind on some of them, so we have to make that clear. We've got a lot planned. I'm working on it. You're working on it. So be patient with us.
You do. And so if you are curious to inquire about the classes that are upcoming, or you want to put forth your ideas that you want to, of the things that you want to learn, please email us at sumarisucc@gmail.com. That's sumarisucc@gmail.com. You can forward all of your inquiries over there. Again, we do personal therapy. You can find us at the same email address as well. If you would rather contact us personally, go over to the website, put in your contact details in there and forward it over. We will get back to you because we share the same email address. So if Margaret doesn't pick it up, I'll pick it up and I will respond or forward it on to Margaret. Again, you are listening to the Soma Fusion Media. You can go to the website at somafusionmedia.com, or if you are interested in my work, you can go to soma-fusion.com. You can see all of that stuff up there. There's katiekamara.com, there's askdrkatie.com as well. If you are on social media, go like, share, and subscribe on YouTube, on Soma Fusion Life Coach, and Soma Fusion Life Coach. What am I saying? Mind, Body, and Soul YouTube channel. You can also go over to Soma Fusion Media YouTube channel as well. Remember, like, share, and subscribe. When you go over to YouTube, though, please hit that notification bell. You will get all notified when we do have shows up on the Soma Fusion Media channel. And we do hybrid TV and radio as a platform. And so you are welcome to go over to that. You can go over to the website. You can find that we have a 24/7 TV channel that you can watch. So you never miss a show. And we have many shows on Soma Fusion Media as well. So please either you can catch in the archives, you can catch us the live shows, which are pretty much every second day right now. And again, if you want to make any media inquiries, you can email me at somafusionmedia@gmail.com. So
I just want to interject here one last thing, very important. If you have a low self-esteem, self-worth and value, please put on some music that you like and dance away, improv like this. Just do anything you want and sing, even if you're out of tune, it doesn't matter, and let go of your stress. And then when you finally feel really wonderful, then say to yourself, I am choosing to study something, whatever it is that you want to do, that is creative for you. That's the beginning. That's what I want to leave you with.
That doesn't work. Grab a pillow, put your head in the pillow and scream.
That's what you did.
You will clear out your mind just as easier, and then you'll find that creative spark of where you need to go, what direction you need to go.
But dancing, swirling around and doing any old thing is using the muscles and that cellular neuromuscular memory. So you're letting go of stress and strain, anxiety, worry, and all that. Yeah.
But not only that, we're also supposed to step out of our comfort zone as well. So if those people out there that really don't like dancing, give it a try. That's all you can do, is to try.
It's not about dancing, it's about movement. It doesn't matter if you don't look graceful, it's just about swinging and exercising and going with the music and losing yourself in that space that you're here.
They didn't come out with the phrase dance like when nobody's looking. Oh, what is it? Dance like.
I don't know that song.
Dance like when nobody. No, I can't get it right. What's the phrase? Dance like no one's watching. That's it.
Yeah, well, nobody probably will be watching if you go in your bedroom or somewhere. It doesn't have to be in the public, but if you find a bunch of dancing people in public, join in.
I've been caught in public, singing and dancing in public, so this is not unfamiliar for me.
Yeah, I've done a lot of that too. Yeah. Well, I hope there's some people who are enjoying our shows. I have to be honest and say we're not getting many live people calling in, which I was hoping would happen, but there we are. We are thinking of maybe making it an hour later. We haven't finalized that. We're still thinking about it.
Yes, but we will let you know either way. We will be back next Saturday with a brand new topic at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4 p.m. Pacific
Arizona
time.
When do the clocks go back?
The clocks do go back, I think, on the 11th. Let me look it up. Hang on. Daylight savings finishes. Oh, let me look it up. The magic number, the 7th.
So on that day, I remain. We don't change our time, but that's mountain time.
Yes, so we will be changing our time in 2 weeks' time. So I think it is appropriate that we do change our time. We will probably be doing it instead of 7 p.m. We're going to be doing it at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for those on the East Coast, and it will be 6 p.m. in 2 weeks for people who live in Arizona, or it will be 5 in Pacific time. So please, I will make note of when the time changes will happen over the next 2 weeks so that you guys are well informed. If not, hit us up, send us a PM on social media. You can get in contact with us that way as well, more directly. We're always available for you, especially on social media anyway, the both of us anyway.
And we want to say here that if you like this show, please share it, because there's lots of people out there we'd like to help, and them and we don't. So
Exactly.
Word of mouth is the best thing.
Exactly. So with that said, we are going to bid you adieu. Again, please watch social media for all upcoming shows on Soma Fusion Media. And of course, this show topic that we have coming up next week as well. But until then, have a beautiful weekend. I love you all. We'll see you next week.
Bye. Bye. Take care of yourself now. Love yourself.